Good evening, and welcome to Crossfire Opinions. Tonight we delve into a compelling and often contentious question. Should parliaments have quotas for minority representation? This is a topic that touches upon fundamental principles of democracy, fairness, and effective governance. Joining us to explore this are Dr. Ben Carter, a political scientist who advocates for such quotas, and Ms. Zahra Al-Jamil, a political commentator who argues against them. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. It's a pleasure to be here to discuss this crucial issue. I firmly believe that quotas are not just beneficial, but a necessary mechanism to ensure genuine, fair representation for minority groups who have been systematically and historically excluded from the halls of power. For too long, we've operated under the illusion that our democratic systems naturally provide equal opportunity for all. But the data and lived experiences of many tell a different story. When our parliaments reflect the true diversity of our society, policymaking becomes more inclusive, more innovative, and ultimately more effective for everyone. Diverse perspectives challenge conventional thinking, highlight unaddressed needs, and lead to solutions that are robust and equitable. Furthermore, we must acknowledge the existence of significant structural barriers, be they economic, social, or political, that disproportionately hinder individuals from minority backgrounds from even entering the political arena, let alone succeeding. Quotas act as a corrective measure, helping to level an uneven playing field and ensuring that talent from all sections of society has a chance to contribute. We've seen positive examples in countries like Rwanda and Bolivia, where gender quotas, for instance, have led to increased female representation and a greater focus on issues pertinent to women and families, benefiting society as a whole. These are not about compromising quality. They are about broadening the pool of talent and rectifying long-standing imbalances to create a truly representative democracy.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. I appreciate the opportunity to present a different perspective on this matter. While I share Dr. Carter's desire for a representative and fair society, I fundamentally disagree that quotas are the appropriate or effective means to achieve this. My primary concern is that quotas inherently undermine the bedrock principle of meritocracy. The idea that individuals should advance based on their abilities, their qualifications, and their experience, not on their demographic identity. When we mandate representation based on group affiliation, we risk selecting candidates who may not be the most capable or best suited for the demanding role of a parliamentarian. This isn't to say that individuals from minority groups are less capable, far from it. However, the mechanism of a quota can, perversely, lead to the selection of individuals primarily to fill a slot, rather than because they are the strongest candidate available. This can lead to what is often termed tokenism, where individuals are seen not as accomplished legislators in their own right, but as mere symbols of diversity. Such a situation can be deeply stigmatizing for the beneficiaries themselves, constantly having to prove they are there on merit, and not just because of a quota. It can also breed resentment among those who feel they were overlooked, despite their qualifications. Ultimately, the quality of governance could suffer if we are not prioritizing competence and expertise in our elected officials. Our focus should be on removing barriers, not on engineering outcomes through prescriptive quotas.
Ms. Al-Jamil, you argue strongly for meritocracy. Dr. Carter, how do you respond to this fundamental concern that quotas might sideline merit?
That's a valid concern, Ms. Al-Jamil, and I agree that merit is incredibly important in public service. However, the notion of a pure existing meritocracy is, I believe, a misconception when we look at the realities of political recruitment. Systemic biases, often unconscious, related to race, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic background, are deeply embedded in our political structures, influencing everything from candidate selection to campaign funding and media coverage. These biases mean that the merit we currently recognize and reward is often defined too narrowly, favoring those who fit a traditional mold. Quotas, in this context, are not about abandoning merit. but about challenging and expanding our understanding of it. They can be a temporary corrective tool to ensure that diverse forms of experience, expertise, and leadership, often overlooked, are brought to the table. It's about creating a system where merit from all backgrounds can genuinely emerge and be recognized, rather than being filtered out by pre-existing disadvantages.
Ms. Al-Jamil, Dr. Carter suggests that systemic bias skews our current definition of merit. What are your thoughts on this, and the idea of redefining merit?
Dr. Carter's point about expanding our understanding of merit is interesting in theory, but I see significant practical challenges. Who decides on this new definition of merit? And how do we ensure this redefinition process isn't itself influenced by different biases or political agendas? There's a real risk of diluting the core competencies we expect from our legislators, such as critical thinking, policy understanding, and leadership skills, in favor of identity markers. While I acknowledge that biases can exist, I am wary of using quotas as a blunt instrument. Are there not more targeted ways to address specific discriminatory practices, if they are identified, rather than imposing a system that could have unintended negative consequences on the overall quality of our representatives? Focusing on equal opportunity, education, and anti-discrimination measures seems a more robust path than attempting to socially engineer representation through quotas, which might not even solve the underlying issues of bias.
Dr. Carter, you mentioned diverse perspectives leading to better policymaking. Ms. Al-Jamil, do quotas genuinely ensure this, or is there a risk that representatives become overly focused on their specific group's interests?
That is precisely one of my significant concerns, Ms. Hayes. The role of a parliamentarian is to represent all their constituents, and indeed, the national interest, not just the specific demographic group they might belong to or have been elected to represent through a quota. If quotas lead to a situation where representatives see themselves primarily as advocates for one particular segment of society, it could lead to a more fragmented and less cohesive parliament. Policymaking might become a battleground for narrow group interests, rather than a collaborative effort to find solutions that benefit the broadest possible population. This could result in divisive, less effective, or even contradictory policies. Furthermore, it risks essentializing minority groups, implying that only someone from that group can understand or represent their interests, which I believe is a disservice to the complexity of individual identity and political thought. Effective policymaking requires a holistic view, not a collection of siloed perspectives vying for dominance.
Dr. Carter, how do you address Ms. Al-Jamil's concern that quota-elected representatives might primarily focus on their specific group, or be perceived as mere tokens?
It's a common concern, but I believe it often underestimates both the representatives and the electorate. Representatives from minority backgrounds bring unique and valuable perspectives that have often been absent from policy discussions. These insights don't just benefit their specific communities. They enrich the policymaking process for everyone by highlighting blind spots and leading to more comprehensive solutions. For instance, understanding the impact of urban planning on disabled individuals, or the nuances of financial exclusion for certain ethnic groups, helps create better policies for the entire society. The risk of tokenism is real if quotas are implemented superficially as a mere numbers game. However, if they are part of a broader, genuine commitment to inclusion, empowerment, and ensuring these representatives have real influence, then tokenism can be effectively mitigated. These individuals are not just tokens. They are pioneers who can help redefine what effective representation looks like. In closing, I want to re-emphasize that the call for parliamentary quotas is rooted in a desire for a truly representative and just democracy, one that reflects the rich tapestry of its people. These are not about preferential treatment in a negative sense. They are about rectifying historical injustices and dismantling the invisible barriers that continue to exclude talented individuals from minority communities from political life. We've discussed the concerns around merit, but true meritocracy cannot flourish in a system that is inherently skewed. Quotas can serve as a powerful catalyst to help level that playing field, and broaden our understanding of what constitutes valuable political contribution. The inclusion of a wider range of voices, experiences, and perspectives in our legislatures is not a threat to effective governance. It is its bedrock. It leads to more robust debate, more considered policies, and outcomes that better serve the entirety of the population. By bringing those who have been marginalized into the center of decision-making, we don't just enhance fairness, we strengthen the legitimacy and responsiveness of our democratic institutions. Embracing measures like quotas, thoughtfully implemented, is a progressive and necessary step towards achieving a more equitable, inclusive, and ultimately, a more effective system of governance for the 21st century. It is an investment in a future where our parliaments genuinely mirror the societies they serve, leading to a stronger, more unified nation.
To conclude, while the goal of a diverse and representative parliament is one I wholeheartedly support, I remain convinced that quotas are a counterproductive and flawed mechanism to achieve this end. My fundamental objection remains: quotas compromise the principle of meritocracy, which should be the cornerstone of selecting our political leaders. We need the most capable individuals in Parliament, chosen for their skills and experience, not to fulfill a demographic checklist. The risks of tokenism are significant, potentially devaluing the contributions of those elected under such a system, and creating an environment where individuals are judged by their identity rather than their competence. Furthermore, as we've touched upon, quotas can inadvertently encourage a focus on narrow group interests, potentially leading to divisiveness and hindering the development of policies that serve the common good of the entire nation. Instead of imposing quotas, which I see as a superficial fix with potentially harmful side effects, our efforts should be directed towards creating a truly level playing field. This means robustly tackling discrimination wherever it exists, investing in education and mentorship programs to empower individuals from all backgrounds, reforming campaign finance to reduce financial barriers, and fostering a political culture that genuinely values diversity of thought and experience, without resorting to prescriptive numbers. True representation will come from empowering individuals and removing barriers, not from social engineering that risks the quality and integrity of our governance. Let us focus on these more sustainable and principled solutions.
Thank you both, Dr. Ben Carter and Ms. Zara Al-Jamil, for a very insightful and spirited discussion on this complex issue. We've heard compelling arguments on both sides today, highlighting the inherent tension between the urgent need for fair representation of minorities and the principled commitment to meritocracy. The potential impacts of quotas on the quality of policymaking and the very nature of political representation have also been thoroughly explored. We hope this debate has provided our listeners with much to consider as they form their own opinions. Good evening.